Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Jag here, and in today's class we are going to continue with our content on grade 8 math. And today's topic, as you can see on the board, is the circumference and the area of a circle. With that, let's get started. Let's start off with the circumference of a circle. Okay, I'm going to write out the formulas so you can see what they are first. So either C equals pi, I'll put times D, okay? Or I could do C equals 2 pi r, okay? And both of these formulas will give you the circumference of a circle. It basically depends on what the question is asking you. And we're going to try a few examples from the textbook as well, okay? And here D represents, so if it's pi times D, D represents the diameter of the circle, okay? Whereas r in the second formula, this represents the radius of a circle, okay? So for those of you who are not sure, let's draw out a circle here so you can see it, okay? And then I have the center of my circle. If you go from the center of the circle, okay, to the side of the circle, this is basically what the radius is. So I'm going to put an r, okay? And if I'm going through the center of the circle and it's a straight line and it goes through the center of the circle here, it goes from one point or one end of the circle all the way to the other end, okay? And it has to go through the center of the circle. That is basically called the diameter, all right? So these are just some terms that I need to know, okay? So we're going to try some examples from the textbook, all right? So I'm going to take this off. Okay, we're going to try one example using each of these formulas, all right? So it says calculate the circumference of the circle. Okay, that's for example, okay? And here the radius is given. So the radius is equal to 5.5 centimeters, okay? Again, make sure you have your calculator handy, especially a lot of the questions in the textbook do involve decimals, okay? And I don't need to do mental math for that. I can use my calculator, okay? So just because the radius is given to me here, I want to use this second formula, okay, which is with the radius. And pi is basically a constant. We are rounding it. It's a really long number that keeps on going. We're going to round it to 3.14 and times the radius, which is 5.5, okay? I'm going to plug this into my calculator, and you're just multiplying all these numbers together, and I'm getting 34, and we'll round it to one decimal place here, so 34.5 centimeters, okay? The circumference of a circle is basically just like the perimeter of like a rectangle or a square, and you're just going all the way around the circle, and that's known as the circumference, okay? Make sure you're noting down the units here. It is just in centimeters. It is not centimeters squared, okay? That's going to be for the area. Okay, are there any questions? All right, good. So this is actually a really simple formula. As you can see, I'm just plugging in the values, okay, into the formula. Okay, so I'm going to take it off. Let's try one more example here. Okay, let's try where the diameter is given. Okay, so this time I'm calculating the circumference of the circle. The diameter is given. It is 19.2 centimeters. All right, and this time I'm going to use the first formula. I'm going to put circumference equals pi times d. And you actually notice, okay, that the diameter is actually 2 times the radius, okay? And that basically shows how both those formulas are equivalent to each other, okay? But in this case, when you use pi times d, it's just easier for you to put it into the formula. So this is going to be 3.14 times 19.2, okay? I'm going to multiply both of these numbers together. And again, I want to round it to one decimal place. So I'm going to put 60.3 centimeters, okay? Which does not mean that the question can't give you the radius in meters. Okay, centimeters is used quite often just because the units are basically smaller here, okay? And it's something that you use all the time, okay, in terms of measurements with rulers, and everything is in centimeters, okay? So this is the most common unit that's used, all right? And we're going to try actually one more question. It does not have this in the textbook, but a lot of teachers will basically give you questions like this, and it's more of like a thinking question, okay? All right, so let me take this off. Okay. Now the question is going to give you, I'm going to give you the circumference of the circle. Okay. So I'm going to just make up a number here. So say the circumference is 15.6 centimeters. Okay. And this time I'm looking for the diameter, okay, of the circle. So I'm going to put D equals question mark like that. All right. I'm going to plug this into my first formula. So let's write out the formula here is pi times D. Okay. And now you notice that this is actually a very simple equation. I'm going to plug in the value for C that's given to me. So which is going to be 15.6 equals, okay, to 3.14, which is pi, times the diameter, which is D, okay? And when I'm looking for D here, remember, because it's an equation, I have to divide both sides by 3.14. And the reason I'm doing this, okay, is so that the value for pi just cancels out like that, okay? So we're going to write it on this side here. So D is just going to be 15.6. I'm dividing it by 3.14. And let's round that. I'm getting 5.0 centimeters. Okay, does everyone see how to do that? Okay, so this time the teacher is giving you the circumference. I'm solving for the diameter. Okay, even if you have a question where you're solving for the radius, I'm basically just going to be dividing. Okay, I'll have to divide it by 2. And then also divide it by pi, so it cancels out on one side. All right, so are there any questions? Okay, good. Okay, so again, this is either like a thinking question or maybe like a communication question. You might have to maybe explain your answer and exactly how you are solving it. All right, so let's take this off and let's move to the area of a circle. Okay, and again, the area of a circle is also a very simple equation. So I'm going to write down the formula. So the area is pi r squared, okay? And again, where r is equal to the radius of the circle, okay? And you can see that the formula is very simple. I have to make sure I actually memorize these formulas at the grade 8 level. Okay, something like the area of a circle and stuff, it's also used in grade 9 within the geometry unit. Okay, so don't forget any of these formulas going into high school. All right, so with that, let's try an example here. Okay, so we'll leave example. It says calculate the area of each circle. So let's start with if I'm given the radius. Okay, let's do the radius as 3.8 centimeters. Okay, and I'm going to plug it into my formula. Okay, so I'm going to make sure everyone can see that. So we're doing pi r squared. Again, make sure you're always writing the formula before you plug in your value. Okay, a lot of the teachers will take off maybe half a mark if they don't see the formula written down. Okay, so it says 3.14 times 3.8 squared. Okay, does everyone see that? So again, remember, I'm not doing 3.14 times 3.8 times 2. It's not like that. I have to make sure I'm doing BEDMAS here. We are going to square this. So 3.8 basically times 3.8. And then I'm going to times that by 3.14. Okay? And we are getting 45.3. Okay? Centimeters squared. All right? So does everyone see that? Again, make sure you are noting down the units. Okay? The units for area has to be squared. Just like if you're looking for the area of a rectangle, which is just length times width. Okay? And it should always be squared here. All right. And with that, we're going to try one last example. Okay. And the reason we're trying this, again, it's more of a thinking question. So I'm going to take this off. Okay. If there are no questions there. And we're going to be doing a question where the teacher gives you the area, okay, of the circle. So I'm going to give you the area here. Let's do the area as 45.8 centimeters squared. Okay, and then the teacher is going to ask you to look for the radius. So I'm going to put R and a question mark. Okay, so we shouldn't be getting scared. It's actually very simple. We're going to plug it back into the same formula. Okay, so let's write it on this side so we can see it clearly. Okay, so I'm writing area equals pi r squared. Okay, I'm going to plug in my area because it's given to me in the question. So 45.8, okay, equals 3.14. I'm going to put times r squared, okay? Just to keep it separate over here, all right? And the first thing you're going to do is divide it by pi on both sides. I'm going to divide it by 3.14, okay? And again, the reason we're doing that is so that pi cancels out, okay? I'm actually left with r squared here. And I'm going to plug in my calculator, the 45.8 divided by 3.14, okay? And let's keep a few decimal places here so our answer is accurate till the end. So 14 point, I'm going to put 586, okay? Now this is not my final answer, okay? This is r squared, and I'm actually looking for just the radius, okay? So you see how it's squared on one side. On the other side, I have to make sure I'm taking the square root, okay? So there's basically this button on your calculator, and it shows it as the square root sign. And I'm just going to press that button. Depending on your calculator, you might have to press square root and answer, and then press the equal sign, okay? So we are getting the radius as 3.8 centimeters, like that, okay? So this is basically a thinking question where the area is given, and the teacher is going to ask you to look for the radius. And this is all you're doing. I'm going to just plug it back into the area equals pi r squared formula. And at the very end, after you divide it by pi, and the steps and procedure is always the same for these type of questions. Okay, first you're going to divide it by pi so it cancels out. Okay, make sure you're dividing the two numbers on the left side of this equation. All right, that's going to give you r squared. And then I have to make sure I'm pressing the square root sign on my calculator. Okay, and then press the equal sign. Okay, and that will give you the radius of the circle. All right. Again, make sure your numbers are relative. If you look at the area here, it's 45.8 centimeters squared. And the radius, the answer is usually not that big, okay? Usually maybe under 10 centimeters or so. And this is like 3.8 centimeters, all right? So again, if there are no questions, that brings this video to an end. We were covering Math 8 and the circumference and the area of a circle. And I think we went through a lot of different examples. Make sure you're going through each of these examples again on your own and that you are understanding the concept. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see everyone next time. Bye!